Welcome to a deep dive into the life of one of history's most pivotal figures, Abraham. Known as the father of faith, he is a man whose legacy spans 4 millennia, cited 67 times in the New Testament and serving as the spiritual progenitor for billions. But who was the man behind the title? Today, we are conducting a comprehensive character study, stripping away the stained glass window perfection to look at the real, flesh-and-blood Abraham, his staggering heights of faith, his deep valleys of fear, and the ancient laws and traditions that shaped his world. Abraham was not born with that name. Originally called Abram, meaning exalted father, he was renamed Abraham, meaning father of a great number, by God, much later in his journey. He was born in Ur of the Chaldeans, a prosperous and advanced pagan center in southern Mesopotamia during its golden age. Historically, archaeology shows us that Ur was a thriving metropolis around 2000 BCE, featuring 2-story buildings and advanced trade routes. However, according to Joshua chapter 24 verse 2, Abraham's family did not follow the true God. Long ago your fathers lived beyond the Euphrates, Terah, the father of Abraham and of Nahor, and they served other gods. Current Jewish traditions, specifically the Midrashic text Genesis Rabbah 38-13, fill in the silent years of his youth. Tradition paints Abraham as a millennial genius who independently discovered monotheism. One famous story describes a young Abraham smashing the idols in his father Terah's shop, placing a staff in the hand of the largest idol to mock the idea that they had any power. The turning point came with the first divine call, often referred to in Jewish tradition as the trial of Lecha. Genesis chapter 12 verses 1-3 reads as follows. Now the Lord said to Abram, Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great. In you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. The phrase Lecha is often translated as go for yourself, implying an internal odyssey as much as a physical one. This was a massive risk. In the ancient world, your identity and safety were tied to your bedab, or father's house. To leave it meant abandoning his past for a destination God hadn't even named yet. Abraham's character is defined by a duality of transcendent faith and mortal dread. The strength of unselfishness. In Genesis chapter 13, when conflict arose between his herdsmen and those of his nephew Lot, Abraham showed a level of grace rare for a clan leader. He gave Lot the first choice of land, even though as the elder, Abraham had the right to the best. In Genesis chapter 13 verse 9, it is written, Is not the whole land before you? If you take the left hand, then I will go to the right, or if you take the right hand, then I will go to the left. The weakness of deception. Yet, this same man repeatedly succumbed to the fear of man. In both Egypt, Genesis chapter 12, and Gerar, Genesis chapter 20, Abraham asked his wife Sarah to tell a half-truth that she was his sister, to protect his own life, effectively making her sexually available to foreign kings to save his own skin. Genesis chapter 12, verse 13. Say you are my sister, that it may go well with me because of you, and that my life may be spared for your sake. To understand Abraham, we must translate the various laws of his time. Archaeological finds like the Nuzi tablets, dated to the Middle Bronze Age, show that Abraham was often following the legal customs of Mesopotamia. Surrogacy and Hagar. When Sarah was barren and suggested Abraham have a child with her servant Hagar, they were practicing a standard legal custom found in the Nuzi and Hammurabi codes. If a wife was barren, she provided a slave girl to ensure an heir. Adoption of Eliezer. When Abraham lamented that his servant Eliezer would be his heir in Genesis chapter 15 verse 2, he was referencing laws that allowed childless couples to adopt a servant to care for them in old age in exchange for the inheritance. Genesis chapter 15 verse 2, But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? Tithing. Abraham is the first person in the Bible recorded as tithing. Genesis chapter 14 verse 20, giving a tenth of his spoils to the mysterious priest king Melchizedek. Genesis chapter 14 verse 20, And praise be to God Most High who delivered your enemies into your hand. Then Abram gave him a tenth of everything. One of the most famous aspects of Abraham's character is his hospitality. In Genesis chapter 18, he receives 3 divine guests at Mamre. In Mediterranean-type societies, hospitality was a social necessity. A stranger was either a threat or a potential ally. Abraham didn't just meet the requirement, he exceeded it. He ran to greet them, bowed to the ground, and offered a feast of veal, choice flour, and dairy, while he himself stood over them to wait on them. The ultimate sign of servitude. This episode reveals his worshipful dependence on God. In Jewish tradition, particularly the Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, Abraham's life is viewed as a series of 10 trials designed to forge him into the father of Israel. These trials vary by source, but the most common list includes hiding in a cave for 13 years from King Nimrod, being thrown into a fiery furnace by Nimrod for refusing to worship idols, the call to leave Haran or Lecha, the famine in Canaan, Sarah being taken by Pharaoh, the war against the 4 kings to rescue Lot, the covenant of the parts or Brit Bein Habatharim, the rite of circumcision at age 99, casting out Hagar and Ishmael, the Akedah or the binding of Isaac. The climax of Abraham's life is Genesis chapter 22, the command to sacrifice his only son, Isaac. This was the supreme test to see if Abraham loved the gift, Isaac, more than the giver, God. Abraham's response was immediate and silent. Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him and his son Isaac. Genesis chapter 22, verse 3. This event was a site of massive trauma for Isaac, who is defined by his first spoken words in the Bible, "Where is the lamb for the burnt offering?" Abraham's faith was so complete that he believed God would either provide a substitute or raise Isaac from the dead to keep his promises. Abraham lived for 175 years, dying at a ripe old age after a long and satisfying life. Even in his autumn years, he remained active, marrying Keturah and fathering 6 more sons, ensuring his inheritance was distributed generously among all his children. He was buried by his sons Isaac and Ishmael in the cave of Machpelah, a plot he had legally purchased from the Hittites, his only permanent possession in the land he was promised. Abraham's life is like a puzzle where every piece of suffering and trial had a reason. He teaches us that God uses flawed people, those who lie out of fear, and those who try to help God out through their own schemes. As you reflect on his journey, ask yourself, where is God calling you to leave your comfort zone? Where is he asking you to let go of something you are clutching too tightly? Abraham's story is our story, a journey of faith, one step at a time. Thank you for joining us for this character study. Like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below.